You know what I'm not good at?
Saying you're sorry?
No, I'm really good at that.
All right.
I really am. She'll tell you that. What I'm not good at is trying to say what I'm saying really briefly.
So you're not the most succinct person in the world?
No.
That's why you're on the radio,
No,
bro.
well, thank you. She always says that. She actually says this to my kids. She's like, your dad, this is what he does for a living, so just buckle up. This takes a minute. Just relax. I'll get you a snack.
Can you hurry up? We have a guest on.
Exactly. I'm doing it right now.
Bring on Dallas.
But I brought it up because Dallas Braden just did on Twitter what I wish I could do. Hey, Dallas, your tweet that you sent, let's see, it's 4:19. You sent this at 4:04. First off, how are you, buddy? Thanks for coming on.
Sammy Succinct, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Yeah, my buddy. Yeah. So your timeline tweet is great because for people who are driving around and you just got off work and you're like, what the hell's going on? This is great. You write a rough timeline. Ohtani rep goes on record with ESPN stating Ohtani transferred $4.5 million himself to a bookmaker on behalf of the translator. Spokesperson for Ohtani delivers translator to ESPN for statement. Translator says Ohtani never bet and felt bad for him, paid off the debt, so he'd never do it again. Spokesperson for Ohtani says translator is lying after he gives 90-minute statement. Ohtani's lawyers claim massive theft. Then translator says Ohtani had zero knowledge of his debt or his gambling habit in general. Done. And then you write, that about right? And I'm like, yes, that's about right.
Crazy. Absolutely crazy to think about. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go. There's so many different avenues that I promise you have already been explored. There's many more that will continue to be explored. And I think we can all understand why, because this is a story surrounding the game's biggest star with a underlying tone that has quite literally kept individuals, and namely one specific individual by the name of Pete Rose, the Hit King, out of a museum in which we celebrate the game's greatness. And it has to do with some of his alleged and some of the not alleged ties to gambling. So when our sport has gone through what it's gone through over the last 5 years, and I'm talking about lockouts, I'm talking about expansion, I'm talking about the dollars attached to contracts. We're talking about a dude who's got over $500 million worth of money deferred in his contract. And that same individual is now having his name tied to a gambling issue in the sport. Yeah. How's your Tuesday going? Or Wednesday? I don't even know what day it is.
That's
Good
right.
job.
Really good, poor conclusion, Dallas. that was fantastic. When you talk about this, though, like I'm always skeptical. Dallas, you know how it goes on the inside. We know what's going on in the clubhouse. We know what statements are issued. We know what's real and what's not. So I'm very skeptical about all this. And where there's smoke, there's fire. I don't want to believe that he's implemented. I don't want to believe he's involved because I think it's bad for the game. So, like, what do you think? What is your take on what you think is going on here?
Well, what I want to believe is everything that Ipe has said about his desire to play the ponies, if you will, to gamble, right? And whether it's horses, anything. I'm just saying his desire to gamble has been something that we have now learned about, and he's got a pretty big desire to gamble, according to his statements. So what I'd like to believe in a perfect world is that Ipe was like, oh, damn, I'm in California. The DraftKings thing isn't working. I got to call a guy that I know that I can do this with, and so I'll do that, and that's just how it goes. I want to believe that Ipe was that ignorant to that extent where he just realized or didn't realize, oh, I have to be in a place where this is legal for me to do this. And then because he and Ohtani have the friendship that they have, because they have the relationship that they have, Ohtani, being a guy who I think we would all want to babysit our children, says, Ipe, damn, man, what are we doing here, buddy? Like, look, we've got to figure this out. I've got your back because I'm going to make $1 billion just playing baseball. I'll make some other ashtray chains too with the New Balance and stuff. And I can take care of this But dude, we got to tighten it up. Like we can't be doing this, man. Like I come on, we're first class travel. We're doing a lot of cool things. I gotta have your mind right. You can't do this to me, okay? So here's the check to make it right. Here's what we got to do, and hey, let's tighten it up. Sound good?
Yeah, lock it up. Lock it up.
And then they realize I can't have his name. Oh shit, I can't have my name attached to this. Like, dude, I'm trying to do you a solid, like in the moment, and then I realize my name, the implications that can come along with this, dude. I think we messed up here. We got to figure this out. That's what I want to believe happened.
Yeah, Ipe, you can't go to Vegas for the first day of March Madness. That's just not a good look for us. But Dallas, before Mark asks you his question, maybe explain to the listeners right now who this guy is. I was trying to paint the picture earlier. This guy's famous. Like every time you see Shohei, you see his interpreter. He's the guy with the Beatles haircut, always next to him. You see Shohei, you see Ipe. Maybe you could explain to people that don't know who his interpreter is.
Well, and it's great. I'm glad you asked that because I want to humanize the individual. Like this isn't just the translator. This isn't just a Dodgers employee. This is Ipe. This is Ipe. And I love me some Ipe because with the Angels being in the A's division, I've had the opportunity to get to talk to him and get to know him a little bit. You know, I've seen him at the All-Star games. I said something fairly funny to Ohtani when we first met at the All-Star game. Ipe laughed and had to gather himself. We've had a good chuckle about that. I mean, I've given Ipe and Ohtani gifts when they're in the clubhouse. Remember when Ohtani got lost in San Francisco on the way to the clubhouse in Oakland? Well, they made shirts that had all of the BART routes from San Francisco to the call, and I gave those to the guys, and Ipe loved it, laughed. I mean, I would talk to him about stuff that had nothing to do with Shohei Ohtani. So Ipe's the conduit between the outside world and this player, to whichever extent this player, and this player being Ohtani, will allow or wants to allow. So when you're in the clubhouse and you're talking to the guys, Ipe's the one breaking it down if there's anything to be lost in translation. Ipe's out to dinner with the boys. Ipe's out at Top Golf with the boys. He's doing everything with he's a part of the team. Like he's loved just as much as Ohtani, if not more so, for the role he serves and the many hats that he wears. So when you understand the relationship between that guy and the player that he's technically assigned to, which has been Shohei Ohtani for his time here, it's not just a guy who's showing up and pulling up in the parking lot and like, all right, so when's your first meeting? We'll see you at 4, talk to the media, and then that. No, I mean, the dude's grocery shopping for him when he's sick because Ohtani himself is like the Beatles all wrapped into one. And this is the guy who is serving, as I said, as that medium between the sports world and the entertainment world that is pulling at him and the fans and the players that know him.
Okay, Dallas Braden joining us, FP in for Dibs, Willard and Dibs. So that was phenomenal, Dallas. Want to know what was bouncing around in my head as I was listening to you?
I know exactly what was.
There ain't no way that dude stole from Shohei Ohtani. There's no way this story is true, Dallas.
And there's no way Shohei didn't know that he was betting. If they're that tight.
And something that I know people have asked, and I asked the question myself, or I guess I tried to answer it because it was being asked of me. How much money does this guy make? How much? And I think it's been documented that he's made anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000 providing services for Ohtani between his employment with the Angels and now the Dodgers. So, you know, and people are asking, well, how does a guy who's making $500,000 a year, you take taxes and how does he run up a $4.5 million gambling debt? Well, the same way that Joe the plumber runs up a debt that he can't cover. The same exact way. It's all relative, right? Because what Ohtani and Ipe have in their ashtray, maybe just a little bit bigger of a number than what Joe the plumber has in his. So how we get there really is of no consequence. The fact that we're there is the matter. And look, Chris Carter, if you remember, the Hall of Fame great wide receiver, talked about so many years ago and was ridiculed for his take on the idea of professional athletes and newcomers to the sport, whether it be the NFL high-dollar guy, the NBA franchise turnaround guy, or the MLB player who just signed for $500 million. Get you a fall guy was the message, right? Have a fall guy was the message. And it was sort of ingrained around if you're going to be doing things that are shady, if you're going to be doing things that might draw a microscope to you, you should probably have layers insulating yourself from whatever activity it is that would be considered unsavory. And I'm not telling you that Ipe's the fall guy. I'm just reminding you that Chris Carter, a long time ago, talked about something that many are now wondering if Ipe fits the role of.
Okay. Now I got more questions. Here's one for both of you. Dallas Braden with us, FP. When you guys hear about stuff like this, gambling, and this isn't necessarily yet betting on baseball, but just gambling within the baseball community, and on the surface, it needs to sort of be hidden. How surprised are you? How prevalent is this behind closed doors?
Dallas, you go first.
Surprised? Not at all. In terms of gambling, look, there's guys that have their hands in other sports that allow gambling. There's guys who are owners of horses, guys who are owners of racing teams, guys who are owners of other sporting teams, right? I mean, think about Patrick Mahomes. That dude owns the Royals. Pretty sure he's quarterback for the Chiefs. Like, so players have their hands in a lot of different things, professionally, recreationally. So is it a shock at all that somebody might pay attention to the Preakness Stakes, or somebody might care about the score of the Hofstra women's badminton game? I don't know. I'm not surprised by it. No, not at all.
FP, what's your answer?
I was on the back of a bus in spring training with the Yankees once. And I'm not going to tell you who the guy was, but it wasn't a prominent pitcher, but a guy had been in big leagues a long time. And we were going across the state of Florida for a 2 or 3 hour bus ride to play spring training. And he was on the phone with his bookie, placing bets the whole trip.
The whole time.
And he's like, yeah, I got a problem. I do it. It's just my thing. Now, I don't know if he was betting on baseball, but I kind of looked at him and he gave me kind of the look like he might be. So I think...
Tell us more about David Wells.
No, it wasn't David Wells. Okay. It's nobody that I can even remember, but it was a pitcher on the Yankees. And I do remember this story because it was the only one that in my experiences. So I've heard stories of players that do have bookies and that do gamble. I don't know if I guarantee you they're not gambling on baseball. Well, I can't say that, to be honest. But I know there's gambling in all of sports. Mm-hmm. We see in football, guys are getting busted for betting on sports. They're getting suspended. I mean, it's like Dallas said, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You're a human being. You get addicted to it. You need to get your fix. It's your addiction. So I know instances of guys, I don't know if they were betting per se on baseball, but that had bookies in baseball back in the day.
Can we just be three guys in a room for a second? Because here's where my really cynical side is going right now. Dallas, you said he makes about $300,000 to $500,000 a year. Shohei Ohtani's translator. And what's the name? Ipe?
Ipe, correct. Okay.
How the hell you run up $4.5 million in debt when you make $300,000 to $500,000 a year?
That's easy, dude. You start chasing. Yeah, it's easy.
Well, yeah, exactly. You start chasing, and you could very easily just sort of fall back on the whole notion of he's Ipe. Like, he's not just Ipe. He's Ipe. We know who that dude is. We know who he's tied to. So in the event of you maybe getting a little too far underwater, there's a chance that Shohei Ohtani life preserver I see you swimming around with every day might be one you could lean on. Jeez. And I think he might be willing to throw me that same life preserver if it meant saving you, Ipe. So by all means, you need another 150? You need another 2? No problem, pal. We got you covered. And that would go for Ipe. Like I said, relatively speaking, like it would go for Joe the plumber. If he knows a guy who knows a guy, no problem, Joe. We'll throw another 500 on it. I know you took that bad beat, tough parlay. You had a 4-legger going. Things didn't shake out. You'll get him on Monday night, though. You'll turn it around. I can feel it.
Dude, if Frankie Two Shots is going to break your legs because you owe him $4.5 million and you're chasing, and there's one thing you know about, and there's people that you hang around, and you're in a clubhouse every day, I'm not betting Duke women's basketball to cover 42.5. If I'm chasing, I'm in a bad spot. I'm going to bet what I know. So that's where I go with this whole thing. Like, did this guy bet on what he knew? Or maybe that's why his gambling debt went to $4.5 million, because he didn't. I don't know. That's the part that I'm struggling with mentally right now. Like, if I'm gambling and I'm around Dallas Braden and I'm having beers with Dallas Braden because I'm Shohei's interpreter, and Dallas is like, we're at dinner and he's winding his arm up and he's like playing with his arm, and I go, what's going on, Dallas? And my arm's barking, man. And you pitch in 2 days? Like, that's inside information, and that's how I'm going to get my money back in my mind. So that's the part that really concerns me right now, is was he betting on baseball or was he just betting on Duke women's basketball?
Yeah, and I think that's a fair question, and I think that is where MLB is going to try to really figure things out. One of the details that I kind of get hung up on is, okay, massive theft? By whom?
Yeah.
By whom? Because that was not even close to being acknowledged, right? And I think when pressed on that, Ipe declined to give a statement and was very kind of mums the word on that. So that's also something to follow, right? I'm really curious about how that's going to pan out, because that's not just a throwaway line for me. I think that's a huge, huge deal. Who's stealing from Shohei? If that's what this is, who do they believe is stealing from Shohei?
Do you believe that someone's stealing from Shohei?
Well, that's the $1 million question, or the $4.5 million question, if you will, is because I would hate to think, and look, the reason that is sort of a tough question for me, and I hate to tie any sort of personal effect into this, but I have a similar story that has nothing to do with gambling, but I had a very close family friend steal a small amount of money from me that I later found just through tracking statements. And if I were to have only a handful of friends that I could fit, that would be the last finger down when I tell you that was the person who was going to steal from me. So if I'm Shohei Ohtani, I kind of understand what it's like to think you have your circle fairly tight, and then you find out you missed the belt loop. And from there, he probably just starts to make the move to spandex.
Dallas Braden is with us. FP's in for Dibs, Willard and Dibs. We're talking about the Shohei Ohtani situation that is breaking this afternoon and still developing. And for those of you just joining us, the headlines are that Shohei Ohtani and his lawyers are accusing his interpreter of stealing a large amount of money, $4.5 million. But that comes after the original story earlier in the week. We didn't know it till now, but the original story was that Shohei Ohtani used the $4.5 million to cover gambling debts with illegal bookmakers. The money was a direct wire transfer from Shohei Ohtani's account. So that's where we sit today. Dallas, what's the worst thing that could happen here for Shohei Ohtani?
That Shohei Ohtani has a direct tie implicating him in a gambling relationship with an illegal bookmaker. His contract is completely nullified, and Shohei Ohtani is never allowed to play baseball again. That is the worst case scenario, because that is the scenario that Pete Rose has found himself in. And we can get into the weeds on trying to make things right and efforts to get back in the good graces of baseball and blah, 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 blah. Those are stories for another time. But to answer your question, what could this potentially look like? What's the worst case scenario? That's it right there. $680+ million of deferred money, gone. Shohei Ohtani playing baseball for the Dodgers or baseball ever again, gone. That's the worst case scenario. Best case scenario, I think, is they do their due diligence as an entity, that's Major League Baseball, and they figure out that this really is one of those, damn, Ipe just forgot he was in California and not in Florida. And Ohtani was just trying to be a solid dude and help his boy out. And there's no ties or evidence showing anything to the contrary. Ipe just has to start toning it down, and Ohtani can't lend his boy any money. And Ohtani gets to play baseball.
And then he opts out and comes to the Giants. That's how I think it's going.
Yeah. I see you working, FP. I see you working.
We'll see. Someone's getting hit by a bus. Watch. This is going to be a Tom Clancy novel by the time this whole thing's over.
Joke.
This will get weirder before it gets more normal. Watch.
Dallas Braden with us. Hey man, it's awesome that you came on. Before you go, you got anything you want to say to A's fans before this season starts?
No, you know what? I just had a great time out in Arizona. It's always great to see the fans that come out and take time to wrap their arms around the boys out there. It was a great experience. Yeah, I mean, I obviously I look forward to seeing the fans that make their way out to the Coliseum. They know how much I love them. I don't think I need to continue to share that, but given the opportunity, my friend, you bet your ass I will. So they know how much I love them, and I can't wait to get this thing going.
Dallas, great to hear your voice, man. Thanks for doing it.
Thanks, bro.
No problem, boys. We'll see you. Have a good one.
Okay, Dallas Braden joining us here on 95.7 The Game. Willard and Dibs with FP in for Dibs.